Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Grand Touring Series of Racing League Season 40. That's right, we've hit the fourth decade of the GTSRL Championship on GT Sport. I'm your host, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and it's good to be here in the commentary box at the Italian circuit of Autodrome Largo Maggiore, West Variant, for the opening races of Season 40. We're trackside with EU Division 1, the top split of the European Division. We've got 3 divisions this season. A huge amount of interest was shown. We almost had enough for a 4th division, and that would have been impressive and phenomenal. That would have been the first time we've ever had a 4th division. We were close, but not quite enough there. But we've got 3 divisions, and I'll be bringing you EU Division 1 tonight. Now, of course, we've got a lot of changes in this season. We've got some really unique features coming to this season in particular, plus also some rule changes, which from this season going forward are going to change things up a little bit, particularly with respect to qualifying, and I'll give you an overview of all that and more in very short order. Well, as we say hello to all of you in the chat, including Pete Chiola, who's currently there in the Twitch chat. Don't be shy, feel free to say hi. It's not a case that you're going to be left out there dry. And Pete Chiola is, of course, racing tonight, is the Estonian driver. First off, Season 40. What's so special about this season? Well, the thing about this season is it is a recall season. Once we get to the end of each decade, we do a recall of some of the best combinations over the previous seasons. Now that it can extend all the way down to Season 1, the progenitor season, the very first one, as we say hello to Balance, who is waving to us in the chat and is hyped up for it, and we're glad to hear that you are indeed, Bill. We're calling out 3 combinations from over the last 39 seasons, and we're started off tonight with the Mazda MX-5 touring cars at Autodrome Largo Maggiore West. A very fun combination given the fact that this circuit has a good number of corners, quite a few sweeper corners, but also one rather tricky hairpin, i.e. turn number 2, and it's also got a banked hairpin of what is, as we go around the circuit there looking at our circuit map, effectively turn number 7. Now the big question will be, what's it going to be all about tonight? Will it be about slipstream? Will it be about handling? Well, it's going to be a combination, particularly in the final sector where you've got a large number of sweepers and these cars are designed to flow through those corners. But on top of that as well, we've got a long set of straights around the circuit, so slipstream is going to be important. And to factor that in for this combination, we are running slipstream on weak, which means the slipstream zone is not 0.75 seconds behind the car in front. It's been extended all the way out to 2.25 seconds. So we're expecting that if a driver's going to break away, they've got to have some phenomenal pace, and the guys behind them need to have a complete disgrace of a race. However, there's more to it. We are running these cars at their base 100 settings, so that is 100% in terms of power and it's 100% in terms of weight. So the cars are nice and light, although the engines are not too powerful. That means it's all about getting the best possible apex speeds and the best possible exit application in terms of the throttle in order to get the best lap times. We're really looking to extract the best from all of our drivers. Now, I'm not going to go into what the combinations are for races, sorry, not races 2, I should say. I'm not going to go into the combination for rounds 2 and 3. You'll have to wait and find out what the combinations are, but I can assure you we've got 2 fantastic combinations to add to this fantastic one over the course of the 3 weeks, but you'll have to wait and find out in a week's time for what is going to be the round 2 combo and a further week away for the round 3 combo. But focusing on the here and now, we've done enough talking. Let's get down to the track side and start to introduce our drivers one by one, and we'll call them out in team order. Now, when I say in team order here, I do not mean that we're going through the favourites, we're just going through how the drivers are organised team-wise. And we start off, of course, with our good Estonian friend, and that is Pete Chiola. The Estonian driver racing under the Finnish flag, as Estonia is not represented within the nationalities that are available in GT Sport, so he's running on the closest to it. But you'll notice on the rear of his car, as always, he's got the Visit Estonia licence plate there. In fact, I don't think he's actually got... No, it's right there at the back. You can see it on the bottom of the car as he makes his way out of turn 2 following K2 here, and we should say it right at the bottom of the car. There you go, hashtag Visit Estonia. He uses that to remind me of the fact he's not Finnish, he's Estonian, but also because he wants to provide a little bit of advertising to the tourism industry of the country. Now, Pete Chiola, of course, been a rising star within the GTSRL community throughout the seasons, has been really rising up the ranks, and is perhaps considered to be one of the favourites to be contesting for the top positions, at least the top 5, we reckon. He's got a lot of potential, and with the mixture of combinations that we're going to be seeing over the 3 weeks, there's something there for Peachy every single round, as we see he's battling with K2 at the moment. As they make their way through Big Banky Boy, but K2 giving Peachy a little bit of a nudge into the gravel there, but no too major harm done in the fact that Peachy's able to rejoin and the two continue to fight. Now he is joined in team number 1 by none other than Zenku Meister, or Zenku as we know him in short, the Polish driver, right now not in the lobby as it currently stands, but will be joining in short order we believe. And Zenku, of course, being a regular and a well-known face and respected veteran of the GTSRL community, and we're looking forward to seeing what he's able to achieve when he arrives on circuit. Now, team number 2, meanwhile, we have to come to the combination of one Yugi, but you'll know him out on circuit as Crowhawk 1950, the Croatian driver here, making his way uphill right now through turn number 9 and heading up towards the braking zone for turn number 10, the sweeping right-hander here. And indeed, the Croatian, we haven't seen too much of him in our own broadcast quite recently, but he's now back on our screens, and indeed a very capable driver to watch out for as he's flashing his lights there. He definitely knows he's on camera and giving him a good old flash as he makes his way and goes a little bit sideways there, coming out the left-hander, showing off for the cameras and the spectators. It's good to see, but it's great to have Crowhawk up on the circuit out in the EU Division 1, and we look forward to seeing what he's able to do, given the fact that he is again one of the favourites for a top 3 finish overall this season. His teammate is and I'm going to probably completely butcher this, but it is the German driver and a relative newcomer, at least to my eyes, and that is Baslerswerg, or Baslerswerg, there we go, and we're going to refer to him as Basler from this point onwards. I apologise if I've butchered his name well up front, but as you all know, I love to butcher a good username or two. But the German partnering with Crowhawk for the purposes of this season and making his way up into turn 10 right now, and doing very well in the time trial session, making his way right up into EU Division 1 quite comfortably, and we look forward to seeing what the German driver is able to achieve tonight on his opening round in the GTSRL community, at least the opening round that I've seen, unless he's a veteran of old and hasn't been around for some time. Running in the Red Bull livery there, which is not the same as his teammate from the COC racing team. That's what Crowhawk was running, so I had to keep an eye on the fact these guys are not running identical liveries, but still we'll be able to differentiate them, I'm sure. We then come on to team number 3, and as we look around the circuit right now, we do have the combination of Spalgazen, and also we do have Vox Bacchus, and we do have Vox Bacchus right now making his way through turn 10. The Welshman, a driver who we have seen constantly in EU Division 1, although he wasn't in EU Division 1 on his opening debut season in GTSRL, but he's made his place in EU Division 1 rather rapidly, really getting himself up to speed in the Welsh Heineken liveried Mazda MX-5 there, and we look forward to seeing what the Welshman is able to achieve tonight, given the fact that he is continuing to build up that momentum and having solid season after solid season. And again, the number 77 car there as he makes his way into turn 1. Well, he has got a lot he can potentially achieve as he makes his way into the corner and gets it a little bit wrong there and almost spears a driver off circuit at turn number 2, but backs out of it immediately. Now, his teammate Spalgazen will be joining us in short order, so we'll wait and see when he arrives. That is team at number 3, of course. And then team number 4, a couple of names that you'll be quite familiar with if you haven't been living under a rock quite recently. It is the combination of Johnny Powell, but we know him as Phil the Vibes, who's currently not at the circuit, but is on his way down here to the Italian circuit. And we've also got Slim Users, and Slim, the Finnish driver here, making his way out of turn 6 down towards turn 7, picking up a half-second penalty there on a practice lap. But the Finn, who we haven't seen for some time, racing in the COC or the Coke Racing Mobile as he makes his way down towards turn number 7, and well, having a good day of it, and indeed quite a fast driver, and we look forward to seeing what he's able to achieve in the opening races tonight, and that will be team at number 4. Now, team number 5, well, there's one name in there that we start off with, and it's this man right here, Yaya777, who we refer to as Yaya, also running in the COC racing at livery there, although slightly different compared to the other ones we have seen, perhaps running on older or just a different variant, perhaps, or a newer variant, but indeed, Yaya is one of those drivers who everybody is aware of. He is perhaps the favourite going into this season. He has been the dominant driver over the seasons in EU Division 1 that he's participated in recently, and indeed, it has been a huge string of form and momentum, and we're expecting to see that momentum continued in the capable hands of the British driver as he goes into tonight. His teammate is K2 Zahn, and K2, the Dutchman, currently making his way through turn number 3 and down through 4. We can see K2 making his way along the long run down towards turn number 7, and the Dutchman, well, it's been a little bit of an odd form there, as we can see he's running the Top Gear inspired livery, the Piniston Oils livery, as he makes his way down towards turn number 7, flashing his lights as well, knowing that the camera's shining on him and showing off for everybody as he makes his way into Big Banky Boy. And K2, over the last couple of seasons, blighted with a little bit of inconsistency, perhaps of things just not going his way, and perhaps this time in season 40 it'll be his time for things to finally turn the tide and be on his side, but we'll have to wait and see what happens there. We then got team number 6. We've got 2 more teams still to introduce, and then we've got to recall some drivers who we haven't had the chance to introduce, of course. And we start off then with the combination of team 6, and that is Luco33, who is not currently at the circuit as far as I'm aware, but that is the Welshman who, much like his fellow countryman Vox Bacchus, has been rising through the ranks of the EU divisions in GTSRL since he joined only approximately 3 to 4 seasons ago, and is really building up at the pace. And we've got his teammate of, if we find him out the circuit, the Dutchman of Golden Dagon, making his way down towards Big Banky Boy in the green mobile there, the green machine, albeit that is quite a nice bit of paintwork there, metallic paint, as he makes his way into turn 7. And Dagon, the one who we couldn't pronounce properly for a very long time, but indeed a driver who has been rising up through the ranks and indeed finding a lot of pace, been featured quite heavily in EU Divisions 2, but now up into EU Division 1, and we look forward to seeing what he's able to achieve over the course of the races tonight. As we see, ZenQ has to back out briefly, probably just quickly fixing some technical issues, but that is team number 6. And then team number 7, last but not least, the teams we need to introduce. We start off with Britain's own Mamba Strike from COC or Coke Racing as well. And that's the British driver making his way up towards turn number 10 right now. And indeed, looking forward to racing once again and seeing what he's able to achieve in the MX-5. And he is joined by Krynik Opal. And Krynik, the Australian driver, we're expecting him to arrive down at the paddock just before we get underway. But he needs no introduction, the Australian, a veteran and a fan favourite of the GTSRL community. And we look forward to seeing what the man from down under is able to achieve over the course of tonight's 3 races. Now, drivers who we've yet to introduce because they weren't in the lobby at the time as we were going through, well, we've got one of them out on circuit right now, and that is the Briton of Feel the Vibes, also running in a COC livery there. So, got a good number of the members of the COC racing team as he makes his way down towards Big Banky Boy. And Feel the Vibes, of course, in team number 4. Many of you will know him within the GTSRL community as Johnny Powell, but we call him Vibes because that's his username out on circuit. And indeed, one of those very consistent drivers. He's not necessarily been the guy who's always been up the front challenging for positions, but when there's an incident, the one guy who never gets involved in the incidents is Vibes, and he just makes his way, cuts his way through the order and finds a way to get very solid results even if it's not his day, and we look forward to seeing more of that from him tonight. Other drivers to introduce, well, we've got Spalgazan. He's just making his way through turn 2 right now, the Briton, and he is Vox Bacchus' teammate in team number 3. And as he makes his way through turn number 3, a driver who again has been finding more and more form as we've gone through the seasons, and this is going to be quite a varied season, a good mixture of combinations. And so for Spalgazan, I think it's going to be a case that tonight, just getting his feet in and finding the pace and seeing what he can achieve over the 3 races. And perhaps he won't start off as strongly as perhaps some of the other drivers around him, but you can be sure he'll build that momentum as the time goes on in that rather fetching blue and white liveried blue and white liveried MX-5 there. I'm not sure I could confuse that with BMW Roadster, perhaps a BMW Z4, as we see Spalgazan deciding to play Sandcastles briefly and now rejoins the circuit. And then we introduce Luco33, another Welshman alongside Vox Bacchus, albeit Luco is the first driver in team number 6 according to my team listings here, making his way down towards turn 7. And as we said earlier, a very strong driver, a very consistent driver. Indeed, the Welsh Army is strong in EU Division 1 this season. Both Bacchus and Luco, very determined drivers and looking to make their mark and really put a stamp on EU Division 1 in season 40. Now, one other driver who we haven't had the chance to introduce yet is ZenQ Meister. We talked about him briefly earlier. He is driver number 2 of team number 1. He is partnered up alongside Pete Giola, and the Polish driver, as previously mentioned, a veteran of the GTSRL community, well known around the GTSRL forum and indeed down in the paddock, running in the COC livery there alongside his teammate Mamba Strike, albeit they're teammates for COC, but not in terms of this series. Just keep that in mind. It will be a little bit confusing, but we'll try and thread the needle on that one. But we look forward to seeing what ZenQ is able to do. We know ZenQ does love to be aggressive, and in combinations such as this where the horsepower is quite low and it's all about the slipstream on the straights and being brave into the corners, we know ZenQ will probably be the bravest of everybody using the brakes, and hopefully he'll be able to keep it together. But that is all of our drivers introduced as they are currently in the lobby. We have not missed anyone as far as I'm aware, apart from Krynik Opal, who we're still waiting to join. In fact, Krynik Opal is here. My apologies, I missed that. So he's snuck his way into the paddock. And here is the Australian driver. A bit of a dark horse, indeed, in the shade right now, in the shadows. And he is one of those drivers who everybody needs to watch out for. Krynik has a magical way of making the strategy work, much like Yaya does. And we look forward to seeing what the Australian is able to achieve tonight. But indeed, it is going to be a very, very flurried field as all of our drivers are making their way back into the paddock right now, or at least some of them are. Some of them are just putting the hazard lights out on circuit, getting themselves up for the voice chat. And by the way, I should point out that our driver steward and indeed our host for this lobby tonight is Yaya777. We call him Yaya, who is just getting everybody underway right now with the voice checks and the pre-race stuck checks, which will be commencing within the next couple of minutes. And those stuck checks, of course, are to give everybody the opportunity to get their feeling for what it's like in the run down towards turn 1 from the standing start with the full start check, but also on top of that to make sure they're able to pull off the line and not get stuck on the grid. If they do get stuck, they'll have the opportunity to reset their technical equipment, i.e. their internet plus also their PlayStation 4, and then come back and see if they're able to get underway. Now, with everybody introduced and the format introduced so far, we take a look in the Twitch chat as we say hello to Bill Bader there. And indeed, yep, all is well here, Bill. How about yourself? And we've got multiple Bills now. We've got Bill Lance and we've also got Bill Bader. This is going to get confusing. It's a story of two Bills in the chat as we also say hello to Zeronic. And we can see that Pete Yella remarking on the fact we've got so many drivers from COC, as we've also got Yugi in the chat as well, and the Big Ranch, who's wishing good luck to everybody. As we can see, Yaya has switched the lobby over to 1 lap, and our drivers will be expected to complete that single lap of the stuck check race, so that way they get a full experience of what it's like for a single lap to be running in close proximity to one another. It gives everyone the chance to get themselves warmed up for the battling as we get underway then with our first stuck check race. So as we pan down to the grid very shortly then, remember this is not for points, although it is a little bit for pride if you're able to win the opening stuck check race. And we see there's ZenQ already having some technical issues, so we've had one driver drop out before they've even been able to pull off the grid, but hopefully they'll come back very shortly. And it's going to be Pete Churla and Mamba Strike on the front row leading us away. And what a lovely camera angle that is. Albeit perhaps they could have straightened the camera up a little bit, but still, if you tilt your head sideways, everybody's going to get underway here. And in fact, it's a case that we didn't have the full start check there. Everybody's pulled off the line successfully. That's caught a few drivers out, though. You can definitely see how it's caught a few of them out. But you can see everybody able to pull off the line as they go charging into turn number 1. And Mamba Strike holding on the inside there as we have 4 wide through turn 1 with Pete Churla effectively putting himself right on the inside for turn 2. Smart positioning from the Estonian as he makes his way into turn number 3. He's still got some users trying to go the long way round on the outside, but everybody side by side and users backing out of it. 90's going to have the slipstream down into Big Banky Boy. A long run, of course, and Mamba will not be pulling away too rapidly here, but we've got the whole army of Mazdas, an angry little army of Mazdas, making their way down towards turn number 7 now, as we see in the rear view picture, Chronicove getting forced a little bit wide there out of turn 6, but there's ample room for everybody to rejoin. And in that battle for P5, K2 at the head of a pack of 4 as they go into the braking zone into Big Banky Boy. 4 wide, Crowhawk trying to go the long way around the outside and cutting back and getting some good momentum, but clipping the back of I think what was Spalgazan there, and as a result losing out on the ability to make a double move, but still gaining the position, albeit he's side by side right now with K2 as they make their way up through turns number 8 and 9 and in towards 10. We can look back up to the front and we see that Mamba is the best part of 8/10 of a second ahead of Pete Churla as everybody comes crashing down into turn number 10 here. Very heavy on the brakes into 10 compared to what they're used to, and now making their way through turn number 11. And you can see that we've still got that side by side between Slim Users and Feel the Vibes. Both drivers trying to squeeze their way around the circuit, and Feel the Vibes getting ahead of the Finnish driver there as they now make their way into the final corner. Users backing out of it a little bit, and as they're about to come across the line to complete the first stuck check race, we can see a number of drivers making their way off the circuit, but Mamba Strike picking up the win there ahead of Pete Churla and Feel the Vibes in P3. But all of our drivers making it safely home, albeit some of them deciding to spin themselves across the line there for some extra style points. But everybody safe and sound across, albeit Crowhawk didn't quite make his way across there, but is now going to probably reverse the car over very shortly, or at least we hope he will in due order. But everybody able to get underway there nice and safely, and you can already see how, because we've got such slow cars by comparison with the overall nature of the circuit and the width of the circuit, that everybody will be looking to try and get the best possible run they can out of turn number 3 for the long run down towards turn 7, and if they can nail it there, we've also got the run to turn 10. But congratulations to Mamba Strike for the win here. Well, that was a good start. Only one driver having technical issues, but we will wait to see. Of course, we've still got 10 minutes before qualifying is scheduled to get underway. And speaking of which, talking a little bit about qualifying right now. So our schedule for tonight is at 8 o'clock British Summer Time in the evening, or UTC +1. So in 9 minutes time, we'll get underway with qualifying. And that will be a 12-minute session as per the norm. However, the difference this time for qualifying compared to what we're used to is the fact in qualifying there will no longer be a full fuel tank in the car. That has been switched off. Instead, our drivers will have no fuel depletion simulated whatsoever, so the car will be as light as it possibly can. And on top of that as well, I believe, although I may be corrected here, tyre wear has also been switched off in qualifying. So as a result, our drivers have the ability to go full attack in qualifying. It's not the case that you're going to see some drivers decide to do some fuel burning, whereas other drivers will be going all out to try and get as many laps in as possible. Although actually I'm just being informed that the tyre wear may still be on. I'm just going to double check that very quickly. My sincere apologies, ladies and gents, but the fuel burning is off, so there is no fuel simulated in qualifying. However, the tyre wear will still be active. So I've just had that confirmed, so that's absolutely fine. So our drivers will have to be wary about the tyre wear, but the fuel situation means that everybody now will be encouraged to push as much as possible in qualifying. So we won't see the split where we'll see some of the more tactical drivers decide to go for the fuel burning in order to get 1 or 2 laps in and faster laps down the straights, compared to other drivers who decide to do as many laps as possible, but they potentially miss out because they haven't got as light a car by comparison to those who've done the fuel burning. So that is the 2000s as we get underway with our second stock check race right now, and we're hoping that this time all 14 drivers are able to make it off the grid. So as we pan down to the grid once again, we can see that this time leading us from the front row is Pete Chiola and Mamba Strike once again, and also Slim Users and Feel the Vibes behind. But we're going to ride on board with Yaya in P13 to give you an idea of what it's like, starting right at the back of the pack. So here's the view from Yaya's perspective effectively. And he'll be waiting for those lights to go out. As it's the lights out and away they go, you can see everybody getting a relatively clear start here, and nobody needing to use traction control because you can literally just put your foot down and launch the car from a standstill. All of our drivers continuing up into turn 1, and of course Yaya's going to have the best spectator seat in the house as he tries to go around the outside of Basler and gets a little bit of contact there. I think he got caught up in a little bit of a collision with what was Chronic Opal at the time, and ZenQ may have come through the back of him, and as a result that's why he got launched forward. But going side by side with Spalgazan coming through at turn number 3, and as they make their way down towards turn 4 and 5, I've been informed that the German of Basler there is a returnee. He hasn't raced over the course of 9 seasons and he's returning. So the last time we saw Basler was back in season 31, but he's returned to the 4A, so he's not brand new to GTSRL, but he is a veteran of old, and he is back once again. As we see, he's going 3 wide with Spalgazan and Yaya into Big Banky Boy, but backing out of it and deciding to take a much tighter line as it's all kicking off ahead right now. And what on earth happened there? Well, I can tell you that K2 was right in the heart of that. And let's take a look at what happened involving the Dutchman. That all went from very badly indeed. So making his way down towards Big Banky Boy then, I think there's going to be quite a bit of side-by-side between multiple drivers. And I think K2 is going to find himself somewhere squeezed in amongst that, where it was in the end Crowhawk who decided to come out, and K2 got punted sideways a little bit there, and as a result he concertinaed into the side of one of the COC drivers. I think that was Yaya, in fact, who got collected, and along the way as well somebody else got collected out. I think that was Golden Dagon, the Dutchman. So that's what happened there, as all of our drivers are now making their way out the final corner, and they're all decided to do a little bit of rallycross. In fact, a lot of drivers ducking their way into the pit, and it looks as though Feel the Vibes ahead of Crowhawk here, and then we've got Vox Backers coming home in P3, Yaya in P4, and Mamba Strike in P5, as everybody making their way across that finish line now, whether they're in the pits alternatively coming across the line naturally, and everybody now really set up to get underway for the race. Well, firstly the qualifying session in 5 minutes time, but everyone able to pull off successfully that time. And well done to Feel the Vibes for winning the second stock check race. So now with our 2 stock checks completed, we may have one more given the fact that we did see a slight technical hitch in our first stock check, but we'll wait and find out. Otherwise, our drivers have now got just under 5 minutes to get themselves set for the qualifying session. Now, the big question, of course, in qualifying, do you want to do your lap with slipstream or without slipstream? Well, the problem is here, you can't use slipstream technically, given the fact that we have a rule in place which states that drivers must give one another ample space in order to do qualifying laps without being aided by the tyre of the car in front. But with the window between each car, in terms of that slipstream zone being 2.25 seconds, unless it's going to be switched off in terms of the slipstream for the purposes of qualifying, which it may do indeed, as we see that we've now got a change to our settings there. Tyre wear has been set to off, as has fuel depletion, although I think some drivers may be reminding our organiser there that we do need to have the tyre wear on, as we are expecting a tyre wear multiplier of times 10 for the purposes of the races and the qualifying. And I should point out all of our drivers using race and medium tyres for the entirety of this season. And ready, everybody getting themselves set up. We will be getting qualifying underway within the next 3 minutes. As we hear from Peachy down in the paddock saying that spin was extremely scary, i.e. what happened in race number 2. And well, Yugi, or Crowhawk as we also know, missing his braking point entirely into Big Banky Boy by the sounds of things. But really, it's now time to talk about qualifying, and the thing, as we see there, is the tyre wear reset there. So, yeah, you're just updating things, getting things set up. And our driver's also keeping him honest there. You can't obviously see this, but I'm keeping my eyes on the Discord chat right now in terms of what's happening down in the paddock. And everybody keeping Yaya nice and honest. But to be fair, Yaya doing a very good job as well. As we see all our drivers getting themselves set up now for that qualifying session. And really in qualifying, I think the idea will be to try and just get yourself in a nice position where you've got a little bit of space out on circuit, given you're not permitted to use slipstream naturally. If you do trip over a driver, however, who's had a bad lap, or you end up catching up to a driver who's just made a mistake somewhere, then you may benefit, but that is just the natural course of things. But I think for many, it's going to be the case of trying to find a good amount of space on circuit. And I think what we may see happen in qualifying is everybody tries to charge out and get themselves through Big Banky Boy as quickly as possible. But as they start to go up the hill into the final sector, it'll be the case there as they go into sector 3 that the drivers might start to space themselves out a little bit, because sector 3 is nice and wide. It's got a good number of medium-sized corners which will enable drivers to essentially give themselves space, as we see Spalgazan and Mamba there going side by side and smacking into one another, which I think they will calm it down a little bit once we get into qualifying. I think both drivers just getting a little bit of that pre-race stress out the system, that pre-race anxiety, but then it will be good to go. But everybody just getting their final feet in right now and waiting to get going. And in terms of predictions then, who's going to be on pole? Well, I think, as I say, the favourite will be Yaya, based on previous experience in terms of over the last few seasons and the momentum that the British driver is bringing into here. But I'm not 100% sure if it's definitely going to be Yaya. I think we could perhaps see some surprises here, given the fact we no longer have fuel burning in particular, so that actually changes the tactics somewhat, and now it is a case of everybody just needs to go to get the best possible lap. As we say hello to Phoenixon, or Fen as we know them in short, who is part of the United States or the North American divisions. It's good to see you here, Fen, and thank you very much for subscribing to the channel. And Peach Earler saying to us right now that he'd be happy if he beats K2 and is not last. Well, that's a good thing to have in mind, Peachy, and we look forward to seeing what you're able to do, of course. Yeah, 1 minute to go until qualifying right now. And we are really just waiting. I think everybody at this point as well very eager to get underway and really kick things off with a bang. As we also say hello to HBoss GT. Hope you're doing well, HBoss. And for those wondering, HBoss will be running in EU Division 2 tomorrow evening, as will be broadcasted by another member of the GTSRL broadcasting team, but we'll talk more about that at the end of tonight. Whilst we are just waiting right now, everybody's still getting themselves set. And I think some drivers at this point not taking the qualifying too seriously, although Spalgazan there, I think, getting a little bit knocked wide. And given the fact he's experienced that twice now with 2 different tries, I think we'll probably be in a little bit of a mood. But everybody just playing pinball with one another, as we see they're all getting ready to go. And I think everybody just getting themselves really set and hyped up to get underway. Now, I think one driver who's a bit of an unknown is Basler. Now, to give you an idea about Basler, the German driver, so he's been away for 9 seasons, been doing a lot of racing in a Assetto Corsa competition recently, but he's happy to be back. He's been letting the drivers know that he's glad to be back. And of course, he'll be a bit of an unknown for a lot of drivers. A lot of drivers will not have raced against him or have seen what he races like, and indeed I personally haven't. But there's the time of day change, so we're about to get underway with qualifying, folks. Right, everybody giving the thumbs up. It is go, go, go. We have got 12 minutes. Who's going to be on pole by the end of it? Let's find out. Well, we have got some drivers experiencing some very slight pit bugs there, but I think that is going to be something that's going to get fixed very shortly. As all our drivers making their way immediately out of the pits now and into turn 1. And I think we are going to see a lot of drivers just simply try and get around as quickly as possible to start with and then space out towards the end of the lap. Although there might be 1 or 2 who decide to park it up in the pits and just wait for the flow. But of course they may lose out on 1 extra lap in the qualifying session. But given that tyre wear of times 10, of course, that will play into their mind in the fact that we should be able to get a good number of laps in. But the tyres will start to go a little bit towards the end after multiple successive laps. Mediums, of course, high durability, moderate grip, and we'll wait and see what they're able to do with the tyre compound as we see Mamberstrike leading everybody down towards Big Banky Boy right now. And at the back of the pack by comparison, we see we've got K2, Spalgazen and Krynik all trying to fight over a little bit of land there, as we see that Krynik Opel in particular backing off of it and warming up the tyres, as is Vox backers. Both drivers just weaving side to side, getting as much heat in the tyres here. And the racing medium can take approximately 1 lap, particularly on a shorter circuit such as this circuit. It can take approximately 1 lap to get the heat in the tyre to get it up to its ideal conditions. And we can see that Luco and Vox backers, both Welshmen, retreating back to the pits immediately as we look back up towards the front of the pack, and we're going to ride on board with the British driver of Mamberstrike as he makes his way through the right-hander and the left combination of turns 11 and 12 and then down into 13, and he commences the lap. Now he'll want the best possible run coming out of turn 13 because this is why the ultimate sweeper corners. This makes or breaks a lap effectively in terms of going on to the next lap. It's a really nice run out of turn number 13 and now going charging down towards turn number 1. So coming up into the left-hander, sector 1, the slice sector on the circuit by a considerable margin, braking at approximately the 50 board, coming into the corner about 65 metres, that was the braking point, and drifting the car down into 3rd gear, using the downshift from 4th to 3rd to throw the rear end before snap shifting down into 2nd for turn number 2. Now he's going to build up the throttle. He's got to have full confidence through turn number 3. It's a blind apex, but as he goes over the hill and down it now, you can see using the full width of the circuit, very confident there from the British driver, and now through 4, 5 and 6, the right, left, right combination here where you can just be completely flat out. Now you can make himself a nice cup of tea as he's making his way all the way down to Big Banky Boy here. A very long run in the Mazda MX-5s, of course, but whilst he's making this run, he's got to sight his braking zone on time. It's going to be approximately that 50 board as he goes into the corner here, and in fact a little bit later than the 50 board, braking down towards 3rd gear and deciding to take a mid-apex. You can take either a late, an early or a mid-apex at Big Banky Boy. Going for the mid-apex, and now it's the long charge up the hill here, and the idea is to have the best possible run up the hill through 8, 9 and into the braking zone for 10, because this is where you lose a lot of time, particularly if you get the gear wrong. But we can see Mamberstrike not making any such issues as he goes into turn 10. Into sector 3 he goes, and here it's now for the sweepers. Goes a little bit wide off of apex initially and then cuts back onto the exit curve before turn number 11, nailing turn 11 here. You can see the momentum and then making his way onto the curve for turn 12, just keeping it within track limits. That was very close there, a hair's width between himself and going wide. In fact, that was a half-second penalty, and as a result Mamberstrike will have to go again. That's very unfortunate for the British driver, as he will not be the first driver to set a proper lap time given the fact he made that mistake and picked up the penalty, but Slim Users will be, and as the Finnish driver comes across the line here, it is going to be a 1:32.7 for the opening lap, and Pete Giella by comparison, the Estonian, already set a 1:33.5, but that's already 8 tenths off of our provisional pole as ZenQ sets a 32.9. Of course all of our drivers getting their sighting in right now as a 33.2 goes to Dagon, and then we look further back here as we see that Crowhawk comes across the line, a 34.0. What about Basler as he makes his way across the line here, a 35.6, probably got more in the tank there, the Dutchman, a K2. Well, I think the drivers behind right now tripping over one another a little bit as Yaya is coming charging through here, and the British driver is going to set a 33.4. That's good enough for a provisional P4 initially, as we see that Spalgazen jumps up into provisional pole of a 32.4. So Spalgazen almost striking first blood, and then Krynik Opel, the Australian, comes out of nowhere, and we said he would be the dark horse, and he does a fantastic job of 32.2. That's 2.5 tenths faster than anybody else so far. So as a result, Chronic Opal striking first blood in qualifying, and we've still got the best part of under 8 minutes to go as we wait to see what else the drivers can achieve. Now, everybody putting in lap times here. Feel the vibes, however, a long way down. But again, I think he put in the sighter for his opening lap, as we see that in that order right now, that Feel the Vibes right at the bottom of the order. And I believe that was Vox Bacchus jumping up into P5 with a 33.2. Now, of course, Chronic Opal with a 2.5 tenth window, that is massive for the cars that we're driving here. 2.5 tenths in GT3 class cars would feel small. In the MX-5 touring cars here around this circuit, that is huge. And as we look further around right now, we can see Spalgazan, well, he is the best part of 2.5 tenths. Well, I say that it was a huge margin, and Slim Jesus goes and shatters everything with a 31.9. So the Finnish driver raising the bar once again. I think we're going to be seeing times come down and down into those 31s. The first driver to hit a 31 then is Slim Jesus, and we're expecting a 31.7 potentially for the ultimate lap here. Let's see if somebody's able to nail that, as we know that Spalgazan right now is purple of everybody in sectors 1 and 2. So we're already going to see the times come down as he makes his way out the final corner. He gets it nailed on, full use of the track width there. Very nicely done by the British driver. And what is it going to be as he crosses the line? Well, Yaya goes P2, but Spalgazan with a 31.3, 6 tenths clear of everybody else around him, as we see that Yaya right now have a 32.0. Well, that's putting him up into provisional P3, but Yaya will know there's still lap time out there. If we're seeing 31.3s, are we going to see a 1 minute 30.9 come this? Say ain't so, folks. That is going to be something fierce if it does happen, as we know that K2 right now in provisional P5, he'll feel happy with the fact he's up towards the top end of the spectrum. Well, I say that now drivers are putting the lap times, and Luco does a provisional best with a 31.9. Is there any more out there for Luco? He is the best part of 6 tenths off provisional pole right now, but still that's very good and gets him right in the mix there for potentially being on the second row, if not the front row. He's only 8 thousandths off of Slim Jesus right now, and we look forward to seeing what the Welshman can achieve with half the qualifying session left to go. Now, looking at further around the circuit here, we can see that Chronic Opal are just making his way off of the racing line there, and I think just giving himself some time to get settled back in, knowing he's got more to do. Feel the Vibes, however, had a good start to the qualifying session. Can he continue that momentum? That time is coming down. It's a 32.8 last time round, as we do see that a driver doesn't improve to go ahead of Feel the Vibes, and I believe that was Zen Q improving to a P5. But focusing back on Johnny Powell here, as he makes his way through turn number 10, does the British driver, and he comes out of the corner there. Nice flow there, but goes a little bit wide onto the marbles, and you can see the car just dropped off of the exit curb a tiny bit, and it pulled him wide, but he's been able to recover the car very nicely, and as he makes his way out of 12 and into 13, just got to keep it together now, and this could be a significant improvement. We'll wait and see as he comes through. A nice line through 13, although the car understeers a little bit, but he just about nails the understeer portion of the corner as he keeps it on the circuit, and this is going to be, it's looking a reasonable lap, and it's a 32.2, setting a P6 right now, and he's only 5 thousandths ahead of Chronic Opal, and only 1/10 of a Zen Q. So getting into those top 3 rows is absolutely tight. I'll tell you that. You can't put much width between everyone apart from Spalgazan right now, who is in a world of his own as it currently stands. But as we look around the field, just seeing if anybody's on an improving lap so far, we can see that Mamba Strike still with a lot to do, with a 32.6 being his previous lap and his best lap so far, but it is so close. And to give you an idea of how close it is, the top 10 are separated by the window of 1.7 seconds. That's how close it is from top to bottom in terms of that top 10 period. And then we've got some drivers outside the mix, including Golden Dagan right now, who's 3 tenths down on Basler. As we see another driver gets promoted, in fact 2 drivers get promoted in short order, one of which was K2, but he's dropped himself into P4. We do notice that Feel the Vibes is now up into P7. Now, can K2 improve from that 32.0? Can he be another driver to get himself into the 31s? We'll wait and see, as he's got one more corner to go here, making his way, going down into the left-hand corner here. And as he flows all the way through, he's only got a little bit to go. But K2 deciding to jump into the pits here with only 3 minutes to go. This could be a smart tactical decision, get some fresh rubber on the car. Also the fact we've got additional rubber out on the circuit right now. You can see the little chips there. And as a result, there may just be a little bit more grip on those fresher tyres that he can utilise. As we see that pole lap of Spalgazan is not being closed up by anyone, as Crowhawk gets it very wrong through 1 and 2 and goes very sideways through 3 there, and almost tripping over Mamba Strike as a result. And it's a 31.9 from Crowhawk though, but Slim Jesus only the best window of 17 thousandths off of him. It is so close to getting to P2 right now. And can anybody get anywhere near Spalgazan? That will be the big question. As we see Basler right now on a personal best, making his way out of Sector 1 in the long run down towards, coming out of Sector 2, I should say, in the long run down towards turn number 7 here. He's 2 tenths up after 2, well, after one sector. The time screens were a little bit glitched there, but remembering our sector lines here, going through turn number 7 right now, and the German, I think a number of drivers jumping back to the pits in. That's why our timing screens are a bit glitched right now, but all of our drivers will be expected to come back out on circuit. So that's why you're seeing drivers jump up and down the order. But definitely, we've got some glitches on our timing screens as it currently stands, folks. We'll have those corrected in short order, that I can promise you. As he's making his way through turn number 10 right now is the German driver, and coming up in towards turn number 11. And as he goes through the corner here, the right into left combination looking very composed, to tell you, with Basler here. And remember, none of our drivers have access to tuning. All the cars are tuned to the same default tune here. So everybody running the same machine in terms of power and performance. And it's a case of getting the most out of it as a driver and knowing where to position that car. As Basler comes across the line here, can he get into those 31s? I don't think it's possible right now. 32.1 there. So that's definitely a 32.0 from Basler on his previous lap. We're just getting that glitch to say he came out the pits on his previous lap, which isn't accurate. So Basler doing a very good job there on his return to GTSRL. Currently provisional P5, but he's still got some time to go. We've still got 2 minutes to go, and anybody could be up towards the front as we see Crowhawk and Yaya right now backing things off at turn number 10 here. Crowhawk being the first of the 2 to go, giving himself some spaces, Crowhawk, to the traffic up ahead, but everybody trying to find the best possible position, where the fact he's only going to have 1 more lap to go, so everybody getting themselves set up for one final try at getting a strong qualifying lap as they make their way through. You can see that Crowhawk now leading Yaya around down towards the start finish line to go into his final qualifying lap here. And really, can anybody else get into those 31s? Can anybody get close to our provisional pole sitter? The gap is 6 tenths to the rest of the field, and the closest man is Crowhawk, who drifts his way into turn 1. That's going to cost him a little bit of time because he didn't quite nail it onto the apex curve. But you can see Crowhawk going for a rear brake bias there and really trying to open up the rear end of the Mazda. These cars, of course, being front engine rear wheel drive, so the weight is located more towards the front by comparison with the rear. So open up that brake balance towards the rear of the car will help it rotate, as we see that Crowhawk making his way through turn number 6 and on towards the straight down towards turn number 7. Not looking the strongest of laps so far from Crowhawk, he must admit, as he is hitting that rev limiter instead. And I'm wondering here whether it's the case that he's just simply cooling it down and starting to sight things in for the overall racing coming ahead, because this is not looking a positive lap. What about Yaya? Is he able to do anything right now behind him? Yaya not finding an improvement so far as we're aware, but again, our timing screens have been a little bit glitched as we make our way up the hill now with Yaya, and you can see coming all the way through at turns at number 8 and 9, flying into the left to right combination here. And coming up in towards turn number 10, will it be an improvement from the British driver? Whether it is going to be, well, he is improving by 2 tenths so far. He's currently provisional P7, do keep in mind, and this will get him up to approximately what will be P4, I believe, if he's able to cut the time down. But we will wait and see, and this is a real reversal in terms of order, as the qualifying session is now going to end. That's 12 minutes up, so everybody currently on a lap must finish the lap, and Yaya is going to be one of the many right now making his way through turn number 13, as we see Slim Jesus into the wall along with Crowhawk there. So those 2 drivers getting it all sorts of wrong as they make their way out of the final corner, but Yaya dodging the drivers and improving to a 30. Well, I believe that there is a 31.8. We're not quite 100% on the time screen because it's glitched there, but he's been able to improve. But Spalgazan, unless anybody else able to improve right now, I think has taken pole on this one. We will wait and see, of course. Let's not count our chickens just yet, as we do look around the order and we can see that Slim Jesus, well, he's not on a lap at the moment, and we've got Luco making his way around the circuit. And a little bit further up, we do have some drivers currently coming through towards the final corner. ZenQ currently provisional P9. What can ZenQ improve to here? He is currently on a 32.1. Can he get into the 31s? That seems to be where everybody wants to be. And it is a 32.0, just missing out on the 31, but that's provisional P8 there. It is so tight between all of our drivers. This is phenomenal stuff as Basler backs out of it, so he's made a mistake somewhere out on the lap, and then we've still got a lot of drivers coming around the circuit right now. K2, the Dutchman, can he get himself into the top half of the order? I think he already has, as he comes across the line, does not improve. What about further behind? Backus parked up, Phil Device parked up, Krynik Opel, he's coming through the final corner as well now. This is looking a good lap from Krynik Opel, but he goes a bit wide out of 13, just taking too much entry curve and too much speed, and it sends him wide here. Unfortunately, he's got it recovered. It will be a little bit of an improvement. He improves to a 31.8 by 3 tenths. So Krynik Opel through the kitchen sink at the lap, and that is qualifying, ladies and gentlemen. So what I can tell you is that pole position goes to Spalgazan with a 31.3. That is a phenomenal lap, half a second clear of the field, and Yaya will be joining him on the front row, 4.5, well, almost 5 tenths down on that 31.8. The second row will be started off by the Australian of Cryonic Opal. Alongside him will be, of course, Crowhawk, as we see that Yaya has jumped back into the pits to set the grid. And then it'll be Slim Users starting off row number 3. The finish drive will be joined alongside by the Welshman Aluko, only 8 thousandths separating the two of them. And then 1/10 down on him, starting off row number 4. Will be Bazza. I think another driver has actually quit back to the pits, unfortunately, so there's going to be a little bit of a messed up grid now. But row number 4 will be started off by Basler, and alongside him will be K2. And it'll be Zenq Meister starting off at row number 5, and alongside him will be Vox Bacchus. The Polish driver and the Welshman both having difficult qualifying sessions, but I'm sure there's plenty in the race for them. And then we've got Phil, well, I think everybody's jumping about right now, but Phil the Vibes, well, as a number of drivers go back to the pits, but Phil the Vibes will be starting on row number 6 if we're accurate. Mammoth Strike alongside him, and then it'll be Golden Dagon who'll be starting towards the rear of the pack. But we do have a couple of drivers who've jumped into the pits, so we can't quite give you the full qualifying order. But what we can tell you is that it was a very, very difficult qualifying session for a lot of drivers. But most of our drivers right now getting themselves set up and ready to go. In terms of race number 1, we are hearing some words down in the paddock that Cryonic Opal's improved lap may be disallowed on his final lap, given the fact that we're hearing down at the stewards gallery in particular that he crossed the line after the 12-minute window closed to go on to that lap. He just missed out on it. So as a result, we may see that Cryonic Opal does get dropped down the order quite a bit. We're not 100% sure where he was before he set that lap, but we will wait and find out right now. But the midfield here is, well, really anywhere from P2 down to the bottom of the field is incredibly tight. But the real question will be on this man right here. Can the British driver dominate race number 1? Because based on his qualifying pace, the expectation would be he can, but we'll have to wait and see. Because the one thing that we've seen every time, whether it's in EU Division 1 or EU Division 3, starting on pole is one thing. Getting away and winning the race is an entirely different thing. And the only driver who's been able to, in recent years, or in recent series I should really say, be able to start up the front and then just run away the race is the man who'll be starting in P2. Can he nail the start, get past Smaugazin and run away with it, or can he keep Smaugazin under pressure? As we're just taking a look in the chat whilst things are being sorted out, I'll let you know what the update is with regards to the qualifying situation and what our order is going to be very shortly. And I believe we do have a bot in the chat, so we're just going to have to remedy the bot as we tell it to politely go away. There it goes. But as we look through the chat here and we're waiting for confirmation, we are hearing that Cryonic Opal's lap time will be based on his previous lap. Now, we haven't got confirmation as to where that will place him, although we are going to try and take a look at his car, albeit I think he did reset to the pits. So as a result, we won't be able to see his previous best lap time. Slim users there. Getting ready and all set to go as we get the time of day flip over and we're getting ready for race number 1. Our grid is now set once everybody ready's up. And Pete Giola saying that it's the difficult qualifying session, but hopefully you'll be able to turn things around in the race. And NASCAR fan 1896 there, who we say hello to. It's good to see you here, NASCAR fan. I believe you're racing in the NA divisions this season. As we also say hello to Sweet Lerb. Now, for those wondering about track limits here and where drivers can pick up penalties, so the thing about Autodrome Largo Maggiore as a circuit in general, it's also known as Autodrome Largo Cutiore because of the fact that on the GP circuit in particular, you can pretty much abuse most of the track limits around this circuit and cut every single corner. The white lines do not tell the full story. Turn 1, you can ride the entirety of the apex curb without getting a penalty, but if you put 2 wheels onto the grass on the inside, it will cause the car to be launched, depending on the weight distribution of the car. That's something our drivers will have to watch out for. Turn 2, so long as you keep 2 wheels on the red and white curbing, you can turn in as tight as you want onto the apex. Turn 3, 2 wheels on the red and white curbing, but you've got the sausage curb there to worry about on the apex. Turns 4, 5 and 6 you won't want to cut anyway, for the simple reason it's a straight effectively with a slight curvature to it. Turn number 7 you can ride the full apex there, although putting 2 wheels onto the apex grass will give you a penalty from what I recall. And then going through turns 8 and 9, it's a story whereby you just really want to flow through, although if you put 2 wheels onto the grass, as long as you've got 2 wheels at turn 9 on the red and white curbing, you'll be able to get away with that most of the time. Turn 10, you can cut a sizable chunk, as we see there from Spalgaz, and you can ride all the way onto the apex curb and the runoff area on the inside, and it's the same with turn 11. Turn number 12, however, you have to stay on the red and white curb in 2 wheels on that maximum. You can't go any further beyond that. And then turn number 13, the final corner here, you can put 2 wheels off and go slightly wider depending on what part you go wide out of 13. It's not a science at turn 13, unfortunately, but it is the case that you can abuse the track limits here, and our drivers will be aware of that. As we're getting the word in our ear that race number 1 is about to get underway, ladies and gentlemen. Who's going to be the winner come the end of it? Let's find out. So as we pan down to the grid then, on your right is Spalgaz and on your left is the COC racing car of Yaya. Behind them, Crowhawk and Slim Users. But what can Feel the Vibes do from P10? Let's wait and see as we get this season underway with race number 1. And it's lights out and away we go, and all of our drivers getting a relatively good start. Spalgazan on the inside, of course, to turn number 1. This is where he'll have wanted to be, because it means he can go defensive into the corner so long as he doesn't lose too much momentum, as we see Crowhawk immediately going on the offensive versus Yaya up the inside, but Yaya will come back at him into turn number 2. We can also see in the rear of your picture that Slim Users up into P4 as there's a bit of contact behind and a massive concertina of cars, as we've literally got an Armory Mazda's trying to go into turn number 3, and K2 is right at the head of that pack as we look from behind, and we can see K2 literally got the entire train of cars from P5 back to P14 all chasing after him right now as they make their way down towards Big Banky Boy for the first time of asking here, and it is going to be something as they make their way down towards the braking zone. Everybody build up speed on cold racing medium tyres here. We look up towards the front right now, no change between our top 4. What about in the battles behind? We see that Feel the Vibes looking for the move on the inside of ZenQ. He gets the move done, but of course we have got 6 laps here as we've got Basler going wide there, and Basler going very wide and almost causing a major instant Mamba strike, getting caught out horrifically there as he had to lift off the throttle. But Feel the Vibes up into P6, and we look up towards the front once again and we see Spalgazan under pressure from Crowhawk, but Crowhawk all over the back of him like a bad rash. But in return we can note that Yaya just sitting there comfortably, and this is where Yaya fries. When he's not ahead, he just waits for the potential opportunity. He gauges what his opponent's going to do, as we note Spalgazan right now really feeling the pressure, and with that weak slipstream as well of 2.25 seconds being the window, he won't be able to break away as easily as they make their way out the final corner then and complete lap number 1. They come down to that timing line on the start-finish straight. So it is Spalgazan leading, going ultra defensive versus Crowhawk. Yaya behind. We focus on the battle between the leaders as they come down to turn number 1. We see that Spalgazan is falling behind initially as Crowhawk tries to go all the way around the outside. 2 wheels on the grass there and he keeps it together, but Yaya with a tactical switch in there, and as you can see, Crowhawk and Spalgazan came to blows, and Yaya jumps up the position there by just simply coming through. So the order flips. Behind them is Slim Users in P4, Feel the Vibes in P5, Luco in P6, ZenQ Meister in P7, K2 in P8, but he's battling with Vox Bacchus right now as we focus on the battle for P8. Vox Bacchus backing out of it initially, knowing that he's got a long run down towards turn number 7, and this is exactly where he'll want to be. He'll want to be in that toe, and he'll want to build up as much speed as possible, but he's got to be careful as Dagon's trying to come down the inside of him, as K2's giving them both a little bit of slip to get them to fight one another, and we can see that the Welshman on the inside as the camera now pans down towards Big Banky Boy very shortly, and Bacchus holds on for the time being as we see that Dagon loses the momentum initially, but he builds a huge amount of momentum. Oh, come on, cameras, switch round, and they're 3 wide up through turn number 8, and you can see that Dagon being pushed a little bit wide there as Bacchus is on the centre of the whole pack of cars, and Chronic Opal just picking up the places, picking up the pieces, and he's gained 2 for the price of 1 as he makes his way down into turn number 10 for the second time of asking, and is now hunting K2. Now, meanwhile, up front, I can tell you that Crowhawk is now back ahead of Spalgazan and Yaya, but the top 5 all within the best window of 8 tenths of a second of one another as they make their way through the final corner once again. And really, our top 5 are breaking away a little bit, although Luco is a second behind, as we see in the battle for P4. Feel the Vibes getting the slip run on Slim Yeezus here as they make their way into turn number 1 for the 3rd time of asking, and Vibes on the inside, and Slim Yeezus backing out of it there. You could see he decided to brake early, looking for the momentum cut back into turn 2, and Vibes goes a little bit deep and loses the momentum on the apex, as meanwhile up front Spalgazan back into the lead, battling with Yaya here, and Crowhawk dropping out of the order as well down towards P3, but still well within this fight. And our top 7, look at how close that pack is, and as they make their way now down towards turns at 5, 6 and then towards Big Banky Boy at 7, Spalgazan is now the one leading the Trainer Mazdas down towards the big corner, and it's about time we see them all come to blow once again as they go 2 by 2, hurrah. And they're all the way down, they go into the braking zone. Spalgazan finds himself on the outside, and Vibes trying to push his way through, bumping the back of Crowhawk. In return, Slim Yeezus also there, as we can see that all of them are somehow able to make it through. Yaya dropping down to P5 temporarily, Spalgazan losing 2 places there, as Crowhawk and Feel the Vibes are now side by side, and any one of our top 7 could win this right now. It's fantastic stuff, as we can see they all make their way through turn number 9. Nobody wanted to give up the inside there, but Crowhawk holding on to it the dearest in P3, as we know that Feel the Vibes is into the lead for the time being. He goes up the inside of Spalgazan through turn number 10, and then behind them Yaya now up into P4, Slim Yeezus behind in P5, and then we've got Luco who goes a bit wide out of turn 12 there. I think he might have got launched a little bit off of the apex curb at 12. He might have clipped the front end of it, as we see Crowhawk with a half-second penalty. And that'll be for track limits at turn 11 or turn 12, and that means he'll have to burn it as he comes onto the start straight here. You can see he's pulled off the racing line, and there's a bit of carnage behind us. One driver gets knocked very wide. I'm not sure what's happened there, folks, but what I can tell you is that I think Basler's backing out of it and burning the penalty, and Bacchus is now up into P8, although he's got K2 on his inside. K2 not able to get the overlap there, as we see that Crowhawk back up into P6. Luco getting it very wrong through turns 1 and 2, and the battle for the race lead continues, albeit we now have the pack of 5 pulling away a little bit. Oh, goodness me, and what has happened there? We have got 2 by 2 as they come out of turn 3. Feel the Vibes, and that being knocked very wide. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but as they make their way down towards turn number 7 once again, I'd love to go back and have a replay of it, but there's so much action going on, we can't cut away from the live action right now, as we know that Feel the Vibes really doing his best to settle down into an order here. Spalgazan trying to go around the outside again, and Spal just having so much more momentum through the corners, and how he'd love to deploy it if he was in clear air all the time, but that's the problem when we've got the toe so strong here. As a result, he can't just naturally break away with pace, but you can see Spalgazan just seems to have more momentum through the sweepers compared to everybody else. But again, it's one thing to be racing in clear air and in a clear track, but when you've got everybody around you battling, it's a completely different story. As we know that Yaya goes a bit deep into turn 10, Slim Yeezus up the inside making the move for P1 right now. Of course, this is only lap 4, we've still got 2 more laps to go, and anyone, in fact we have got the best part of 7 cars right now, all chasing after the race leader, and ZenQ, who we're looking at right now, right in the mix of this, of course, battling for P5 as it currently stands. Crowhawk ahead of him, and they make their way out the final corner. 2 more laps to go. Let's take a look back a little bit further back, and we can see that Bacchus, Krynik and K2 coming to blows out the final corner, and we know that Bacchus falling behind Krynik there. Krynik getting the move done, but of course now we go on to the next lap, and you can see that Dagon by comparison going up the inside but missing his braking point altogether, and oh goodness me, Krynik Opel is spun out. I'm not sure what's happened. Let's take a look back. So as they make their way out of the final corner, you can see Krynik had a lot of momentum, but had a little bit of a bump with K2 there as he was making his way out of the final corner. Now here, he is going to get clipped by somebody as we're looking backwards from his car. So Vox Bacchus is on his inside, and then Dagon, well I think it was Bacchus, just simply had oversteer over the apex curb, and the car clipped Krynik Opel, and that's how it all played out. But meanwhile up front, I can tell you that they're going 3 by 3, hurrah, hurrah. Okay, I've never seen this in my life, but my goodness, that is 7 Mazdas going in 3 wide and 4 wide combination through Big Banky Boy, and as the camera switches round to watch them go up through turn 8, that is phenomenal stuff to see all 7 of them make it through. And just to give you an idea of what that looks like, folks, as they make their way through here, the camera flicks over of course, and you'll see that Spalgazan is at the head of this pack as they all make their way down into the corner, and watch this. As we can see, they come through and you've got Yaya on the inside. They all come charging through and they all make it somehow through the corner. But right now, we must come back to the live action as we've got one more lap to go after this corner. And all of our top 7 still within about a 1.5 second window of one another. If that, anybody could win this right now. Slim User, Spalgazan side by side. They go on to lap number 6 then. Spalgazan in the lead right now, going defensive as Yaya looks to the inside on both of them. He goes into the lead temporarily, but Slim User goes all the way around the outside, but Spalgazan in the middle does a reverse Moses and manages to find his way. So he does a Moses maneuver and manages to find himself through the two of them and is in the lead, but he drops out of it. ZenQ now finds himself up into P2. Spalgazan is knocked wide, but he rejoins behind the pack. He hasn't lost too much momentum. They're all still in this as they make their way through turn number 6. Keep it clean, boys, as much as you can. We don't want to see any fisticuffs right at the end of this one as they make their way down towards turn number 7. Everybody pulling to the right hand side, trying to go onto that defensive line, and we can see Slim Jesus and ZenQ. Neither of them want to give it up as they go into turn 7. Yaya looks to the inside on ZenQ. He gets it, and as a result, that's going to cost ZenQ a little bit of momentum and give Yaya a position up into turn 10. He'll be up on the inside if he can stay side by side with ZenQ. But of course, through turns 8 and 9, the understeer becomes a factor, and Yaya backs out of it immediately as they make their way through 9 now and up into 10. Slim Jesus leading the pack here as ZenQ looks the inside into turn 10. He goes to the move, but he can't quite find the overlap there as Slim Jesus goes for it and he takes the position back, and as they make their way through 11, he's only got 2 more corners to go. Turn 12 coming up, all of our drivers still there, and we can see that Slim Jesus leading the pack here as he makes his way into the final corner. Can the Finn hold on, or will ZenQ have something to say about it? The finish line's right there, and as they come down the hill, ZenQ is behind Slim Jesus by a 10th of a second, but I think he's going to have the run, or is he? Who's going to be the winner? It's Slim Jesus by 300ths of a second ahead of ZenQ, followed by Yaya. Then Feel the Vibes and Crowhawk in P5, Spalgazan P6, Luco P7, Vox Bacchus P8, Mamba Strike P9, Basler P10, K2 in P11, Chronic Opal in P12, Peachiola in P13 and Golden Dagon in P14. Congratulations to all our drivers, but to the winner, Slim Jesus from Finland. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is race 1 of 3 tonight in EU Division 1. Oh my good lord. But still, making sure to save the replay. There are your race results, subject to any Stewards inquiries, and I think there may be a couple given the love taps that we saw from some of our drivers and some of the more serious taps. Slim Jesus bringing it home, only 300ths or 400ths in the end ahead of ZenQ. Yaya rounding off the podium there, only 2.5 tenths off of the win. Feel the Vibes in P4 and Crowhawk rounding off our top 5. The fastest lap being set by Feel the Vibes on lap number 2, a 31.979. But we have still got 2 more races to go and plenty more to kick off. Now, the drivers to watch out for, I think, really, with everything that kicked off, I think there's going to be a little bit of a story with regards to what happened in turn 3, and Spalgazan in particular will feel that he was inconvenienced through turn 3, but they did all try to go through their 2 to 3 wide, so somebody was going to get knocked. Nobody really wanted to give up the battle there, but Spalgazan, he'll be starting it in P6, and that's something which, of course, will be on his mind going into the next race. But it is going to be something else. And also the one driver to watch out for will be Chronic Opal, who's starting now in P12 after that incident between himself and Vox Bacchus, where Bacchus got launched off of the turn 1 apex curb, and I think the car clipped Chronic Opal trying to go around the outside of him, which was very unfortunate. We will have to wait and see what the Australian can do from a bit further back down the order as we're waiting to get underway with the next race. But congratulations to all our drivers, a very, very tight one. As we also say hello to XE Deluxe, I believe is our fellow Polish driver, known as XE, one of our senior admins within the GTSRL community. And he, of course, will be cheering on his fellow Polishman, his fellow countryman, ZenQ. But everybody now just getting themselves cooled down, a little bit of heatedness in the paddock right now. Not going to go too much into it, but what I can tell you is that race 1, I think everybody right now really feeling the fact that these Mazdas can be driven so close to one another, and when you go for a move, you've got to send the move, you've got to throw it into the corner, and as a result of that, I think some tempers just need a moment to cool down, but we'll be getting underway with race number 2 very shortly. As Crowhawk takes us around the circuit and makes sure that our camera doesn't get stuck in the pits. I think really also the story that we can tell. I think the story that some can tell with regards to race number 1, the main observation I would take from it as race number 2 is going to get underway is that toe is lethal. But enough of that. Race number 2, another 6 laps. Who's going to be the winner come the end of it? Let's find out. So as we pan down to the grid, once again, it's Slim Yeezus on the right-hand side, ZenQ to the left, but behind them, Yaya and Feel the Vibes. But what can Spalgazan do to recover from P6? He'll want that win, or at least be on that podium. And it's lights out and away we go once again. All our drivers getting a relatively good start as they come charging down towards turn 1. Slim Users immediately taking to the racing line this time. So taking a different approach into turn 1 from what we're used to. And we can see a lot of drivers deciding to go for that inside line, which gives them a compromise line into 2. But not Slim as they make their way through the turn 2 hairpin here. And everybody making it through nice and safely this time. In fact, 2 by 2 they go. And nobody really kicking anything off right now. But I think this is the calm before the storm as we see Feel the Vibes in P3. Having a little bit of pressure from Yaya, but everybody getting the feet in this time. Although Luco, we can see bouncing over the sausage curb at turn 5 there, and the car being launched very slightly as they all make their way down towards turn number 7. And we've got Vox Bacchus and Luco coming to blows, as we've also got Mamba Strike trying to get into the mix there. And Bacchus at the head of the pack here as they go into Big Banky Boy. We can see Slim Users defending against ZenQ up front as Mamba Strike goes way too deep into the corner and sends Spalgazan flying there. And he waits up immediately, but Spalgazan will not be happy with that, I'm sure. Mamba has waited, of course. Great sportsmanship shown, but Spalgazan will now have a huge amount of work to do, as I think Mamba Strike just missed his braking point entirely going into Big Banky Boy. But what you can see right now is Slim Users and ZenQ really going to blows, battling one another. The Users defending to the inside, ZenQ trying to find every which way to cut back on him, but Feel the Vibes immediately jumping into the space there and picking up that P2 right now. But of course this is only lap 1 and we've still got 5 more laps to go here as they all make their way down towards turn 13. And we look a little bit further back and we can see that Luco in P6 just started to catch up to this top 5 pack right now. But talking about that top 5 pack, here they come as they come out of the final corner. Your order as it currently stands after lap number 1. Slim Yeezus ahead of Feel the Vibes by 3/10 of a second, followed by Yaya. Then it's Crowhawk 1950, followed by ZenQ. Then it's Luco in P6, followed by Bacchus in P7, Chronic Opal in P8, Baslo in P9. Then we've got Peachy, well, I say Baslo in P9, he's dropped down a little bit as Golden Dagon's battling with him. So Golden Dagon in P9, Baslo in P10 going a bit wide there. And then we've got Peachiola up the inside of the German into turn number 3. He's got himself up into P10 from P11. And we can also see K2 trying to get on the mix there. So Basler dropping 2 places through the sequence of corners in the first sector. Basler down to P12 right now, but he's still battling with K2 here as the 2 drivers make their way down towards Big Banky Boy. And we can see side by side they go in that battle for P11, trying to catch up to Peachiola to take the P10 spot off of him. But the Estonian is pulling away a little bit as K2 is side by side. And Basler getting a bit of a toe here, but Peachy then giving a tiny bit of toe to K2. But as they go into the Big Banky Boy here, the camera pans back and we can see that K2 taking the tighter line and Basler just maintaining the momentum but not able to get it done this time around. But meanwhile, up front, Slim Users back up ahead of the pack right now. He got ahead into Big Banky Boy. But of course, getting ahead is one thing. Staying there is a completely different thing. We're seeing more changes for the lead. Now I'm seeing changes of socks this week as they make their way through turn number 10. And we can see that Slim Users really doing his best right now just to try and keep that flow and making sure that this pack does not drag any more cars into it. As we know, in P5 right now, ZenQ have fallen away from the lead pack briefly. He's only 8/10 off of our leaders as they make their way through the final corner once again. And Luco trying to get into the mix here. The Welshman will be looking to try and get himself into that top 5. In P7 right now is Chronic Opal doing a very good job to recover from P12. He's made up a good number of places already, has the Australian driver. Can he get himself up into that top 5 as we see Luco go side by side with ZenQ here? and goes extremely deep, and we see a number of drives go deep. In fact, a lot of drives going deep into turn number 1 and missing turn number 2 as a result. But we can see that Luco dropping back down the order, and Crowhawk, that I'm not 100% sure what happened, but Luco with the dirty tyres here going a bit wide out of turn number 3, and Chronic Opal up into P6 and continuing his ascent up the order. But meanwhile, behind them, what you can see is that Peachiola and K2 have broken away from Basler, so Basler has been dropped by the P10 and P11 battle as they make their way down towards Big Banky Boy once again. But meanwhile, in that battle for P7 right now, we can see that Bacchus battling ahead of Luca. The two Welshmen working together here, it's worth noting, not fighting one another too hard. They're not part of the same team, but they're both being sensible and keeping the fighting to a minimum, as we see K2 going wide there out of Big Banky Boy and losing all the momentum as Basler jumps up to P11. Now up front, meanwhile, Feel the Vibes is now leading ahead of Yaya. I think it was the case that Slim Jesus may have gone wide out of Big Banky Boy. We didn't see that on camera, but he's dropped back a little bit as Vibes and Yaya battle. We can see behind them that Slim Jesus in P3 right now, really pushing to get himself back into the battle for the lead come the second half of the race. We've still got 3 more laps to go, of course, as we see our top 5 is starting to fit out a little bit now. They're just spreading out a little bit, but we will wait and see if they all cluster back together. Well, Crowhawk won't be clustering back into this immediately. I can assure you of that with that half-second penalty. That will cost him the region of a second down into turn number 1, as we see Vibes there going very wide out of the final corner. Let's see what happened there with regards to Vibes very shortly as they make their way down towards turn number 1 on lap number 4, and Yaya now finding into lead. Can he hold on to lead? That'll be the question that will be asking himself, but we're going to take a very quick look back at what happened to Feel the Vibes. So riding on board here with Feel the Vibes, we're going to see as they go down into turn 13, Yaya all over the back of him as he goes into the corner here. A little bit of contact there, and I think actually Feel the Vibes going a bit deep and some contact with Yaya potentially. It didn't look 100% clear, but he was knocked wide, and as a result, that's why he went flying off. As we look back now to the live action, we can see that Yaya starting to pull away from the pack as they make their way down towards turn number 7 for the 4th time of asking, and everybody started to fall into a line right now, because I think particularly for the guys in P5, but Chronic Opal up into P5 with Crowhawk burning that penalty. Opal will want to catch back up to the leaders, as will Crowhawk, and neither driver wants to fight too hard as Chronic almost bins it into the gravel there, just catches the car, and it was very good work from Crowhawk to dodge his car as he came down the speed thanks to the gravel on the left-hand wheels. But you can see that Chronic pushing everything he can in the No Room for Racism Mobile to make his way up into that top 5 fight and towards that podium as they make their way into turn number 10 once again. And the race has calmed down a little bit this time, it should be pointed out. I think everybody might have just been given a little bit of a warning from the senior stewards who are watching the race as well via the TV cams right now, that everybody just needs to try and keep the cars going. We've got plenty of races in this season. Just because you don't win race number 1 doesn't mean your season's over. But everybody just calming it down right now. But again, I did say at the start of this one, could be the calm before the storm, and Yaya really starting to feel the pressure from Feel the Vibes right now as they make their way onto lap number 5. And we see in the rear view camera there, that was Basler going off into the wall, and he's caught the car. Basler's been able to catch it as we see Spalgazan chasing K2. He's caught back up to the P12 driver, and he's really trying to make the most of what has been a very difficult race for Spalgazan as he makes his way into turn 1 and gets the move on K2 nice and easy, although K2 throwing the car at Spalgazan there, and I think Spalgazan's not going to have too much of that through turn 2 as they make their way through 3 right now. Side by side they go, and I think Spalgazan's going to be thinking, right, I've got to get this done through Big Banky Boy, and then just simply plant it as K2 settles in behind him. But meanwhile up front we can see that Slim Jesus and Yaya coming side by side down towards Big Banky Boy once again here, and behind them Zen Q in a side by side moment here with Crowhawk. So it's 2 by 2, hurrah hurrah they go, and you can see all 4 drivers making their way through. Slim Jesus at the head of that pack now, Yaya in P2, Crowhawk in P3, and Zenq back to P4. But meanwhile, Feel the Vibes and Chronic Opal also following this through here, and you can see as we pan the camera up towards the mountain right now, that is the case that Chronic Opal at the back of this pack, and I think waiting to start to make the moves on the final lap. But remember, he goes to the inside right now into turn 10, does the Australian. He's looking for the P5 position of Zenq, who goes a little bit deep there. I'm not sure 100% if there was contact, but he's backed out of it and got himself back into P6 collectively, and he's got Luco behind him now as all of our top 7 make the way. In fact, we have got our top 9. To give you an idea, our top 9 are within 2 seconds of one another. They are all within the slipstream of one another, and Peachiola is gradually catching up to this. So right now we have got 9 drivers who could end up on that podium effectively as they all make their way onto the final lap, and I'm sure it's now going to kick off as they make their way into the braking zone for 1. Crowhawk on the inside of Yaya as they go into the braking zone for left-hander, but remember it switches back to a right-hander. Crowhawk going for a huge send on the inside. Feel the Vibes also coming through there, and Yaya now finds himself on the inside of the hairpin corner, but Slim Jesus gets the best run of it through the corner, but he's not able to get the door shut at turn number 3, and it means he goes a little bit wide there, as we see Feel the Vibes is knocked wide out of turn number 3, and he falls to the back of the order. But our top 10 right now are so close. I can't believe this, as they make their way through turn number 6, and Crowhawk is at the lead in this pack right now, but it could all change, of course, as they make their way down towards Big Banky Boy. They are 3 wide so far. Are we going to get a 4th or a 5th car into Big Banky Boy? Indeed we are, as we can see that ZenQ's in there, and Luke as well. 5 wide they go into Big Banky Boy, and Yaya at the head of that pack. Oh goodness me, and Chronic Opal is sent flying. Oh no, that's disastrous for the Australian. We'll take a look back at that, but meanwhile our top 4 are still all battling their way up the hill through turn 8 right now, and they're making their way into turn 9 and up into turn 10. Yaya still at the head of this and going defensive as hard as he possibly can into the sweeping right-hander, as we see Crowhawk trying to find its way in, and then we've got Jesus behind him and ZenQ side by side with him, compromising their line. It means they're going to be out of it in the battle for the race lead unless Yaya and Crowhawk come to blows coming out of the final corner, but I don't think it's going to be the case, as they make their way then down into the final corner. As the camera pans round to the start-finish line, who's going to emerge the victor? Well, Crowhawk has made it up the inside of Yaya as they come out the final corner. He's done the move and he's going to take the win. The Croatian has done it ahead of Yaya, followed by Slim Jesus in P3, ZenQ in P4, Bacchus in P5, Luco in P6, Feel the Vibes in P7, Golden Dagon in P8, Peachiola in P9, Smalgazin in P10, a recovery effort from the British driver Basler in P11, Mamba in P12, Kato in P13, and Krynik in P14 after that incident on the final lap. Congratulations to all our drivers, but to our race winner, Crowhawk from Croatia. Well, that was race number 2, ladies and gentlemen. And as we save the replay and take a look at the race results, here they are, subject to any stewards' inquiries, of course. Crowhawk bringing home the win by 1.5 tenths ahead of Yaya, and P3 going to Slim Jesus. P4 and P5 being rounded off by ZenQ and Vox Bacchus respectively, and Luco just missing out on the top 5 there, but the Welshman rising up the order. Chronic Opal setting the fastest lap on lap number 5, the fastest race lap we've seen so far, a 31.846. But I reckon the Australian is going to be fuming right now with what happened down at Big Banky Boy, as we can see dropping him all the way to the back of the order when he was right in the fight there for the race win. But still one more race to go, and this is where we come on to race number 3, and this is where things open up considerably because we move on to the strategy race. Now, nothing has changed with regards to the strategy race. We still have the same setup, which is, it is the longer race, it is the feature race. We have 13 laps, we have a mandatory pit stop, and the question for our drivers is, do you pit and take tyres, or do you just pit and make your way through? Now, tyre change here, Autodrome Largo Maggiore, if you take the tyres on, will cost you probably an extra 4 seconds. So that is what you've got to play with, and given the slipstream zone here is 2.25 seconds, the question you've got to ask yourself is it worth gaining the 4 seconds just to potentially be reeled in towards the end and therefore lose the time because the driver behind you gets into the slipstream? And that's what will be on the minds of our drivers, and I think a good number of them will pit and change the tyres because they'll know they'll make it up over the distance. But we will wait and see, of course, as we are waiting for the countdown right now for race number 3. But a lot of our drivers right now just getting themselves set up for the final race of this evening, and Crowhawk getting in just a bit more lap time to get himself going. Bringing home that win in race number 2, of course, he'll be very pleased with that. And we say hello to Luke666111 in the Twitch chat as well. We hope you're doing well, my friend. Indeed, H-Boss, if I was doing every single division, I'd probably completely lose my voice. Oh, goodness me. And no problem, XE. It's always good to have you here, mate. But we are just waiting. We've had the time of day change and we had it set to 12 laps. I think somebody's going to be saying to Yaya very shortly, shouldn't it be 13 laps? So we will expect another quick change, but it shouldn't reset our order. And there we go, there's the 13 laps, so all our drivers just need to get themselves readied up right now, and then the grid will be set, and we are good to go with race number 3. And we have seen from our drivers that the tyre wear does seem to creep in on approximately lap number 5 or lap number 6 in terms it starts to have an overall effect. So that's the crossing over point and really at the midpoint of the race. Now, what we've seen in terms of form previously is that normally some of our more tactical drivers will go for a very late stop if they've started up front, or they'll go for a very early stop. Now, what I'm thinking is, given the fact that slipstream is so extensive here, but also the battling potential is so strong in terms of drivers love to battle into each corner, if you were to pit on, say, lap 2 or lap 3 and feel confident you could make the tyres last it, I switch the tyres over and then just make them go, you could actually find yourself jumping a considerable number of positions simply because you'd come out in clear air and then go chasing after the field. But of course then you've got the reverse question of the slipstream, which down the straights here with the weak slipstream will be a major advantage. So that's the trade-off. If you feel you've got the pace in clear air, then it may be worth pitting after 2 or 3 laps and then just going for it, going hell for leather and saying, right, I'm going to try and jump drivers by undercutting. But otherwise I expect that we'll see a number of drivers probably pit as a pack just because of the slipstream effect. Or we might see, say, 1 or 2 lap overcuts, but nothing more than that. But we will, of course, wait and see. That's what I'm placing my money on. Anybody who pits before lap number 4 may find themselves jumping all the way up the order come the end of the race if everybody does not decide to settle down but continues to fight. But be sure to place your bets as well in the chat, folks. Let me know who you think is going to win race number 3. Can we expect it to be our race number 2 winner of Crowhawk? Or will it be Slim Yeezus, our race number 1 winner? Or will we see a completely different winner and therefore 3 different winners over the course of 3 races tonight? But we are just counting down right now. I'm not hearing anything in the paddock. Well, I think we're just being told race number 3 is about to get underway, ladies and gentlemen. Hold your hats. I'm going to take a quick sip of water as well. Race number 3. Who's going to be the winner? Let's find out. So as we pan down to the grid for the final race of round 1, EU Division 1. On your right is Crowhawk, on your left is Yaya, behind them Slim Yeezus and ZenQ. But watch out for Krynic Opal, starting right at the back. What can the Australian achieve from the back of the field? And it's lights out and away we go. All of our drivers getting a solid start once again. And Crowhawk this time just maintaining that inside line down into turn 1. As we can see at the rear of your picture, one of our drivers pulling off very slowly by comparison with everyone else. Bazza going right up the inside of everybody into turn 1, but not making it count, braking nice and early as Mamba Strike tries to throw himself around the outside through turn 1. But everybody making it through safely, although Dagan getting swamped a little bit and reverse Moses out of turn 2. It's worth noting as we can see that Crowhawk holding on to that lead for the time being and everybody jumping into that order. And we've got the full train of cars making their way down towards Big Banky Boy right now as everybody just keeping it together. And I think a lot of drivers recognising the fact they cannot afford to lose the toe of the guys in front of. Spalgazan has already gained 2 places and made his way up into P8 from P10, it should be pointed out. But as they make their way down to Big Banky Boy, will we see smoking moves? We see ZenQ going up the inside immediately, and we look behind and we see Feel the Vibes doing something similar here as they make their way through the corner. And there's been a major incident, 4 cars involved in a major pile-up, and K2 running right through the middle of that. Let's take a look at what happened. So right on board with K2 here, he's going to be right at the back of this pack as they make their way into Big Banky Boy. Now we're going to see, I think we're going to see Basler here getting caught out as he goes to the inside. They make their way into Big Banky Boy and Cryonic as well. There's contact and Basler gets stopped, but K2 hits the back of Cryonic and then literally Mamba Strike in the middle of that as well with Basler. So the two instants coming together effectively, and as a result we've seen our rear four drivers drop off the order, and I suspect we may see some very early pit stops from them very shortly. That's very unfortunate for an instant like that to happen so early on, as ZenQ is holding on to the lead right now, and Yaya and well, everybody jumping into the pits immediately, although ZenQ deciding not to. That's a lot of drivers already in. ZenQ still on to that lead, then Voxbacchus in P2, Luco in P3, Golden Dagon in P4, Picciola in P5, K2 in P6, Basler in P7, and Chronic Opal staying out in P8. But as all of our drivers will be getting ready to come out the pits, of course, now it's the time for our drivers who had the instant early on, particularly Australian Chronic Opal, to shine in terms of strategy, as we see Yaya and Crowhawk coming out the pits here side by side. And I can't really tell you if they've changed tyres or not, because there won't be much graining on the tyres. We can see these two really coming to blows once again, as is Slim Yeezus and Spalgazid, and they feel the vibes. They're all together here as we look behind, and we can see that Mamba Strike also in that order, deciding to pit later, of course, with that incident. But right now up front, ZenQ leading. He's got a small gap over Luca and Voxbacchus, and I think for these five, if they can keep the fighting under control as K2 goes wide out of Big Banky Boy, but gets it back together, if they can avoid fighting, then this will work to their advantage, although Dagan may want something to say about that, the Dutchman, as he goes up the inside of Bacchus into turn 9 here, and they make their way into the braking zone for turn number 10. And as they come into the zone, you can see Dagan side by side, although Bacchus gets a little knock there, as Pichiolo's also in the mix, but they've all settled it down now and calmed it down a little bit going through 11. But as they go out of the corner and in towards turn number 12, it's going to be the case that our top 5 really need to focus of just getting the pace down and not fighting one another, because otherwise they'll find they'll get completely jumped by the race leaders who all pitted on lap number 1. At K2 and P6 right now, after that little incident out of Big Banky Boy, we can see our top 5 pitting as well. This is crazy in terms of the pits right now, and K2 staying out, as is Basler here. So these two deciding to go for offset, as we can also see that Chronic staying out, and Yaya is the first driver to come through who hasn't pitted yet. So everybody is really changing things up in terms of the strategy, and Chronic Opal coming along right now, so he is clear of anybody who hasn't pitted yet. And look at this, everybody charging out the pits right now. Literally everybody, it's nails and quarters, as we've got yellow flags all over the shop here, and Chronic Opal once again. What has happened to the Australian? We'll take a look very shortly, but the Australian not having a good day at the office, and I can't tell you what's happened immediately, but something has gone very wrong there, as we see Yaya knocked wide out of turn number 3, and it is the case that the two pit teams really all came out together here, and it's been absolute carnage. And what this does mean, of course, is that these guys don't settle down, then we could potentially see Basler and K2 jump up the order come the end right now. But ZenQ is leading after the pit stops being done by everybody minus our top 2 and Chronic Opal on laps 1 or 2, and ZenQ getting the overcut on the field behind, of course, who pitted on lap number 1, but not by much and not enough to make a clear breakaway right now. And the question is, do the guys battling for P3, do they fight, or do they decide to work together and push one another along? Will that be the case? Because if so, there'll be the case that Basler and K2 will fall down the order. If it's the reverse, however, and they continue to battle, then we'll wait and see where K2 and Basler end up come the end of this, as we see they all battle through turn number 10 here, and ZenQ loses 3 places as the door was opened up, and Luco is up into P3. But speaking of carnage, let's take a look back at what happened to Chronic Opal. So just peacefully making his way in towards turn number 1 here. Does he get too tight on the apex, or does he go too wide and end up on the grass? He turns the car in, and the car bounces, and it just bounces sideways over the curb there and snaps on him. That is very unfortunate for Chronic Opal, who now finds himself down in P13, and having not pitted yet as well, the Australian, he is effectively out of sequence with everyone, and technically the back runner here, unless something magical were to happen right now. It's been a very bad day at the office for the Australian. He'll probably just enjoy the fight in action as it currently stands, but we can see in the head of the pack right now, it's Luco leading ahead of Slim Yeezus, but up front it is K2 and Basler, and these two getting very close to one another. K2 having a very difficult time at the moment, as Basler has closed him down over the last couple of laps, and look into the inside, it's the German versus K2, and surely these two are not going to fight this too hard right now, because they're in a pack of their own, but they are going to fight. And Luco meanwhile only 8 seconds down the road from our leaders as they make their way through Big Banky Boy here, and of course the more fighting our leaders do, you can see fighting through Big Banky Boy cost them 3 tenths of a second immediately, as somebody's got it very wrong there, and that's Golden Dagon, who's gone completely sideways out of Big Banky Boy. And we take a look back. So making his way here down in towards the Big Banky Boy corner. In fact, we're going to stay to the external camera here to see where there may have been contact. I think what you're going to see under braking here, he just goes a little bit too deep. And as he makes his way through the corner here, as a result, he just goes wide. There was no contact. And as he rejoins onto the runoff area there and almost takes Chronic out. Chronic literally being a magnet for cars to collide with him tonight. And thank goodness Chronic didn't have an incident there. As we see, Basler has to burn a penalty there. But our race leaders have cost themselves a lot of time. Slim Yeezus is into the wall. Oh, goodness. We were literally cut away for 5 seconds. And Slim Yeezus is into the wall out the final corner. We'll take a look back at that in a second. But staying with the live action right now, we can see that Feel the Vibes in P3 under pressure from Crowhawk as they make their way through turn 2. And as they come out of the corner, we can see that Crowhawk battling with Feel the Vibes, backing off a little bit through turn number 3. And again, it is the case right now. Do they fight or do they put it up and wait until it's the end? Well, we've already covered 4 laps. We're on our 5th lap right now, but you could see just how close it is. And this is effectively, we suspect, the battle for the lead you're watching right now, which consists of the best part of what is 10 cars. And, well, that's one thing to say, and that's one thing to tell your children as they make their way down towards turn number 7 once again. And Bacchus going defensive into Big Banky Boy here, side by side with ZenQ as they make their way through the corner, and ZenQ trying to go all the way around the outside as Pete Giola gets a little bit of snap oversteer through the corner. The car just lifting a bit too much on the rear end through the banked corner as he drops down to P11 and Chronic up into P10. But we look back towards the front of this pack and we can see that Feel the Vibes continuing to push on, and Basler only the best part of 7.5 seconds up the road. So I think our 2 race leaders have effectively, through their fighting and a little bit of inconsistency, are now being reeled in as everybody in this pack seems to finally be calming it down to some sense of normality here and focusing on making sure they get the lead back before they end up going fighting once again. But as they make their way through the final corner onto lap number 6, you can see Crowhawk literally drifting the car every which way sideways. But let's find out what happened to Slim Yeezus. Well, we'll wait and find out actually, as we can see Mamba Strike trying to finger his way into the gap between Pete Giola and Chronic, and he finds it in the end. Pete having a very bad run off the final corner, and now Mamba behind Chronic Opal here as we see both drivers breaking into the corner and Chronic getting knocked on the back by Mamba Strike. There you can see Chronic went on the brakes earlier than Mamba as Bacchus goes very deep by comparison and gets it all sorts wrong. So Mamba clears Bacchus and Chronic Opal has to avoid the slower driver, the Welshman there, acts as a bit of a roadblock, and Pete Giola now finds himself up the inside of Chronic Opal into turn number 3, and as they make their way out of 3 through 4, 5 and 6 now, you can see that these 4 falling off of the hunt for the race win as they make their way down towards Big Banky Boy once again, and we can see that Pete Giola wants to get back in there, of course. Meanwhile, up front, K2 just coming out of Big Banky Boy right now, whereas Feel the Vibes is just going into it. It's an 8.5 second gap between our P3 man and our race leader right now. As Luco goes wide out of Big Banky Boy, he rejoins onto the circuit and lights up the tyres too soon. And Luco spins. He gets himself out of the way of everyone, of course. That's a saving grace. But K2 battling Basler, and behind we can see the battle is now starting to kick off a little bit for our P3 position, which is effectively the race lead, we believe, as Feel the Vibes, Yaya and Spalgazan all just nip and tuck towards one another, going through turn number 10 once again here, and we can see that Crowhawk trying to get himself in on the action as well as they make their way through the corner and then to 12 and then through to 13 very shortly, and Spalgazan almost riding too high on the turn 12 apex curve there and almost accruing himself a penalty as K2 and Basler pit at the halfway point here, and they're definitely going to be dropping out of the racing order for the win based on the fact they've only just come into the pits, and the pit time loss here we believe is something in the region of probably about 15 to 18 seconds as they make their way then onto lap number 7. It's the race lead re-inherited by Feel the Vibes ahead of Yaya and Spalgazan in P3. Then it is Crowhawk in P4 and ZenQ in P5 as we look further back, and we can see that Mamba Strike ahead of Ox Bacchus now, and we've got Pete Giola in the mix there, and K2, to give you an idea, coming out 10 seconds behind. So the pit time loss here for what is a tyre change is 18 seconds. Keep that in mind if you're in EU Division 2 or EU Division 3 for later this week. If you don't take the tyres, it's probably going to be about 14 seconds as they make their way down towards turn number 4, 5 and 6, and we can see that K2 leading the midfield pack right now. Now behind them, of course, we've got Slim Yeezus, and let's find out what happened to the Finnish driver earlier on. So this was on lap number 4, remember, and as he makes his way down into the corner here, is there contact or does he just ride the curb too much? I think there was a little bit of contact from Feel the Vibes there, and he goes out onto the grass, and as Yeezus rejoins, he rejoins into Spalgazan, and that's what sends him flying there. I think Yeezus just unfortunately tried to rejoin at the wrong point and should have just opened the steering wheel a little bit more, but that's neither here nor neither as he's now back and racing once again, and we can see making his way up the hill now towards turn number 10. But meanwhile up front, Yaya is now leading, got himself past Spalgazan and Crowhawk, but of course any of these drivers could flip it around. But hold on a second, we seem to be missing someone. Where is Feel the Vibes? What on earth has happened to the British driver here as he's dropped all the way down the order? Well, Feel the Vibes, that was the way we had a yellow flag out of Big Banky Boy, and something must have gone horrifically wrong for Feel the Vibes, because to drop all the way down the order there from the battle for the win, that is a disaster for the British driver, but now he's dropped down. And that is very unfortunate for him, as we can see the battle between K2 and Basler continues, and the two of them just continually coming to blows. They won't let one another go as they make their way onto lap number 8. And you do have to think right now, if they had not battled, where could they have been? But they're going to fight from the midfield all the same as they make their way through turns 1 and 2 once again. And we can see Slim Users at the front of that pack, and really now having to make the ultimate recovery drive here with everything going so very wrong. And I'm wondering if there was actually some contact perhaps between Slim Users and Feel the Vibes, or whether it's just Vibes going off himself. But then again, Jesus was quite far back. He was nowhere near Feel the Vibes thinking about it. But meanwhile, up front, we can see that our top 4 have broken away. Vox Bacchus now has fallen off of the hunt for the race win, and we can see that Bacchus down in P5. Don't count him out, of course, because he could catch up, but he goes very wide there out of Big Banky Boy, and there's contact between himself and Mamba, but he rejoins, and they both make it through unscathed. There are a little bit of paint traded between the two of them, as we see Yaya leading right now, and we jump on board with the British driver. You're riding on board with him as he makes his way up into turn 10 here, and you can see Spalgazan making the recovery drive here. It's been a nightmare night for the British driver, but he's now in P2, and he'll be hoping that he can at least finish on the podium, if not take the race win that he suspected should have been his come race number 1. But still, he's here now, and he'll be looking to try and get in there, as Crowhawk and also Zenq will want to get into the mix. Now making their way into turn 13, you can see that all 4 drivers here on very similar lines, very similar competence, though Spalgazan getting the better run out of 13, but knocking the back there of Yaya, trying to say to Yaya, look, I don't want to fight you, let's just keep pushing forward, let's get away from everybody, and then we can fight towards the end as they make their way down into turn number 1, and we can see that Crowhawk trying to get himself on the inside of Spalgazan temporarily there, but making a bit of a ham fist of turn number 1, although Spalgazan as well going a bit deep, and you can see that the two drivers really trying to make themselves the number 1 contender versus Yaya right now. Zenq just watches on a little bit further back. Being smart here is the Polish driver, 6 tenths back, and just simply staying in that holding pattern, waiting to strike a bit later on. Meanwhile, the battle for P5 you're looking at is Mamba Strike ahead of Vox Bacchus right now. The Briton versus the Welshman as they make their way down towards Big Banky Boy, and you can see the two of them very equally matched. Bacchus getting the overspeed here thanks to the slipstream draft out of 4 and 5 as they make their way down towards Big Banky Boy. Then it's going to be Bacchus on the inside, Mamba Strike on the outside here. They make their way under braking, and Bacchus taking the position. I think Mamba Strike here deciding to go deep for a cutback, and he's not able to get it initially, but he will have the momentum going up the hill now, and I think Bacchus Hill will hold the inside, but will Mamba Strike try and go all the way around? He does indeed, and Bacchus, I think, just a very gentle little lift there from the Welshman to let Mamba Strike back up in front. But meanwhile, the battle for P8, Basler breaking away a little bit from Slim Users here as he makes his way up the hill, and I think there's been an off at Big Banky Boy. K2 has had an off. Let's see what happened. So making his way out the corner, just too wide out there, and as he rejoined into the path of Feel the Vibes, and that is very unfortunate there. And K2 not having a good day at the races as Krynik Opal is now behind him. Krynik having pitted, of course, so is now on the drive from P13. But meanwhile, our race leaders, as they go on to lap number 10, you can see that the fighting starts to open a little bit. Crowhawk trying to find his way to make it a three-way fight for turn 1, and Spalgazan gets ahead of the pair of them as he makes his way through turn 2 here. Yaya behind him, and Crowhawk trying to take the wide line in order to open up the hairpin, but not able to use it to get the momentum past Yaya, instead settling back into P2. And Zenq still there, just tactically waiting, just thinking about when he can get involved and perhaps take the win off of all 3 of them, just watching right now. As they make their way through 4, 5 and 6, they come down towards turn number 7, and we can see that Spalgazan at the head of his pack right now, not doing anything defensive. I think just respecting the fact that he knows that he's not going to be able to break away, and the defense needs to come on the final lap. He doesn't need to give the name of the game away right now as Spalgazan leads the 4 through the corner. Meanwhile, behind them we can see that Mamba Strike in P5, Vox Bacchus on the inside of him into the corner here, and they traded places last time round, but Bacchus not able to find his way past Mamba Strike right now, and Pete Schürrle getting into this as well. The Estonian on the back of this pack, who you're riding on board with right now, is the Visit Estonia man, as we see Bacchus there going a bit wide through turn number 8, and as a result of that he's now on the inside as it's a drag race into the braking zone for turn number 10, and Erler on the racing line, but Bacchus on the inside. Bacchus going very deep on the brakes, and Pete Schürrle deciding to just simply undercut him on the inside there as Bacchus tries to hold down the outside, but Pete Schürrle says no, I'm going to take that back, thank you. And Mamba running wide there, that's definitely going to be at least a half-second penalty at turn number 12. There's the half-second penalty penalty that we called out, and he's going to have to burn that, and that'll put him right back into the fight with Pete Schürrle and Vox Bacchus for P5. But up front, meanwhile, I can tell you that things are continuing to remain the same in terms of our leaders right now as they go on to lap number 11. Although Spalgazin getting knocked a little bit, or did he just run a bit deep? The car going off the circuit there, and Yaya now picks up the position as Crowhawk also tries to sandwich his way into the mix, but backs out. He thinks better of it, going through turn 3 here. Now they make their way down towards Big Banky Boy once again, and behind, Bacchus and Pete Schürrle have got ahead of Mamba, with Mamba having to burn that penalty. But what you can see is that Mamba is only the best part of 1.5 seconds behind them, so he will get the distance off the pair of them as they make their way down towards Big Banky Boy as well now. Now, to our race leaders, they're continuing to stay in the train here, all of them keeping it safe and sensible right now. I don't think any of them wants to make a move immediately, although you can see Spalgazin taking a tighter line like some of the other three through Big Banky Boy. Feeling that's where the grip exists, as we see that meanwhile Bacchus versus Pete Schürrle, the two of them, well, Bacchus having a good run initially, but Pete Schürrle getting the better run out of Big Banky Boy. And as the camera switches round, in fact, Pete Schürrle getting the move done for P5, but he's still got plenty more to do, and we've still got 2 laps to go come the end of this one. As further back down the order, I can tell you that Basler is in P8 and in a world of his own right now, which will be very comfortable for him. And Golden Dagon right now in P9, holding on to the second to last place in the top 10, as we see Luco and Slim Yeezus side by side through 9 here. But Luco's going to be on the outside. Yeezus is going to really send it on the brakes here into turn 10 if he wants it. He's going to look for it, and he goes to the cut over the bank in there in terms of the inside. I think that might be a penalty for Yeezus, given how much onto the runoff area he's cut. In fact, that is a penalty, and that is a half-second penalty for the cut by Slim Yeezus as he makes his way now down towards turn number 13 and drops down to P12 as Phil the Vibes finds his way through. 2 laps to go, of course. We're back to our race leaders. Spalgazin back up into the lead of this pack come the end of turns 1, 2 and 3. And you can see they're all settling down and I think getting themselves ready for the final lap, where it's all going to kick off. The pressure cooker is building right now as we look further back, and we can see Pete Schürrle starting to pull a little bit away from Vox Bacchus as Mamba, they're going for a huge run onto the sausage curb there at turn 3. We're going to take a look back at that. That looked like a very aggressive push on the inside. Let's take a look. Now, making his way into turn number 1 then, you're going to see that Vox Bacchus goes deep here by looks of things, but in fact gets the car together, but just simply goes a bit wide out of 2 and goes onto the grass, and Peachy doesn't give him the space to return. But then Mamba decides to size out the inside, and in fact you can see that Bacchus did turn a little bit into Mamba strike there, and I think that's going to be classed as a racing incident, but they'll both be given a little bit of a finger wagging by the stewards. Mamba strike there deciding to ride his sausage very high and dry as they make their way down to turn 10. It's our leaders we're looking at right now, and you can see that Spalgazin are leading ahead of Crowhawk. Yaya falling back to P3, but again, it's all chop and change. We've still got 1 more lap to go, and it is going to be an incredibly close finish between all of them here as they make their way out of the final pair of corners. Then 1 more quarter to go, and then they go on to lap number 13. And now the fisticuffs will come off, and it will be a case the gloves come off and the fists will fly as they make their way down towards the final lap. Here we go then, ladies and gentlemen. Which one of these 4 is going to be the winner come the end of it? They make their way onto lap number 13, and immediately Spalgazin just holding to that racing line right now, as we can see none of them deciding to go for anything adventurous straight away, although Crowhawk they're just tapping the back of Spalgazin a little bit there, just trying to get into his head perhaps as they make their way out of 2 and up into 3. Crowhawk going onto the grass temporarily. That's going to cost him a little bit of initial momentum out of 3, but he'll gain it back through the slipstream, going down through 4, 5 and 6 as Zenku runs out onto the gravel a little bit there himself. We can see behind me while that Pete Schürrle ahead of Mamba Strike and Vox Bacchus as well. They all make their way down through 4, 5 and 6 now, but we look back to our leaders and they're all staying in the line right now. Surely somebody's going to peak it. Somebody's going to look for the move, and it's Crowhawk who makes a little bit of a weave. He's on the inside of Spalgazin as they go into 7. Yaya gets ever closer. Crowhawk goes to the move. This will cost the momentum of the top 2 here as they make their way out of Big Banky Boy. Spalgazin falling into the rear of Crowhawk there and losing all the momentum he gained through taking a better run out of 7. And now Yaya is all over the back of Spalgazin. The 2 Brits here coming to blows as we see Crowhawk holding on to that lead position right now. But Spalgazin immediately looking to the inside into turn 10 as he goes deep on the brakes here. He's going to go for the move on the inside. He gets the position here, and Yaya pushes his way through alongside. He uses Spalgazin opening the door as we see Yaya and Crowhawk come to blows here. And I think with those 2 battling, so long as Spalgazin keeps it together, he's going to pull it off as Crowhawk makes a mistake at turn 12 and he falls back to side by side with ZenQ. But as they make their way through the final corner, he makes his way down, and it has been the recovery arc of the race season so far, and it has been one recovery to remember as Spalgazan wins by half a second ahead of Yaya, ahead of Crowhawk, and ZenQ comes home in P4, missing out on the podium there. Mamba Strike will bring it home in P5, all said and done, ahead of Peachiolo and Vox Bacchus. Basler in P8 in the end, Luco in P9. What a brilliant job from Luco to recover. Dagon in P10, Phil the Vibes in P11, not his day in race number 3. Slim Jesus in P12, and it'll be Chronic Opal. It's been a disastrous day for the Australian, but he still brings it home in P13. And then last but not least of our runners is unfortunately K2, who having a disastrous race number 3, but still the spirit to bring the car home. Congratulations to all of our drivers, but to our recovering British driver who makes it 3 different winners out of 3 tonight, Spalgazan from the United Kingdom. Well, what an absolutely cracking end to tonight's racing. As we take a look at the race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries, of course, Spalgazan picking up the win there. Half a second clear of Yaya, who was battling with Crowhawk for P2. Yaya brought home the second place, ahead of Crowhawk, who rounded off our podium. ZenQ in P4, and then Mamba Strike rounding off our top 5. The fastest lap going to Basler there from Germany on lap number 11, a 1:31.984, almost as fast as the fastest lap we've seen in race conditions tonight. But that is our races for EU Division 1 at round number 1. Some fantastic racing, and we've got plenty more to come over the course of this week. Because remember, we've got 3 EU divisions. We've also got 2 North American divisions. The North American divisions, if I remember correctly, will be cast by Dizzy Funk. He is your North American commentator. He'll be going live later tonight with NA Division 1. And tomorrow, it won't be me broadcasting EU Division 2, but instead it will be Pies1123 who jumps inside the commentary box, and he will be bringing you your EU Division 2 action as our middle league drivers take to the Italian circuit. But right now, we're going to get ourselves set for King of the Karts. As we see a number of drivers trying to get in here to get in for King of the Karts. As we are just really waiting for things to tick over right now. But what a brilliant recovery drive from Spalgazan after what was a disastrous race 1 and a near disastrous race number 2 to make his way back onto that top step right at the end there. I think he'll be giving himself a massive pat on the back. But the one driver we hope to see more of come next week and see right back up there, Chronic Opal, with a very difficult evening. Just could not get anything to work, whether it was contact with other drivers, mistakes of his own, just nothing was coming together. We'll give it a couple more minutes, folks, and we should have King of the Karts underway. As we say hello to Raise to Rule in the chat, we're just seeing that, and also Canado. And there are our King of the Karts settings. Can we tune this kart, if I remember correctly? There we go. I do apologise if the stream quality now goes through the floor. That's an unfortunate issue with regards to the bit rate and driving the kart. It's going to be very unstable through these corners, the kart. But we'll be getting underway with King of the Karts very shortly. There we go then, ladies and gentlemen, King of the Karts time. Let's see what we can do. As we say hello to Phil Deadly in the chat as well, and you missed out 2 crackers in races 1 and 2 as well, Phil. I'll definitely get this shared on YouTube in the near future, so that way you're able to see it. Remembering we're running the kart with less acceleration now, so we've got to play it smart. To be fair, having less acceleration is actually making it easier to control when I get knocked. Come on, Raze, let's just go forward. Let's chase after Yaya. Let's not let him get away with it. I'll take a P6. I need to switch the gears back. It's too slow in terms of acceleration. I'd rather hit the rev limiter. That was good fun. Just waiting for Feel the Vibes to get across that line. And there we go. Congratulations to Olaf on the win. Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen, well that has been your EU Division 1 round number 1 for Season 40. We hope you've enjoyed it. It has been some fantastic racing through and through. There's the results from King of the Karts. Olaf rounding off the podium ahead of Yaya and another driver who we can't see as the host is already in the lobby. It was Race to Rule who came P3. But thank you very much for tuning in. It's been a pleasure being your host. Now, with regards to tomorrow, as I said earlier, it will not be myself broadcasting EU Division 2 tomorrow. Feel free to come back about the same time, 9:30 in the evening British Summer Time or UTC +1, where Pies 1123 will be taking it to the commentator stand to bring you the EU Division 2 action. We're still working on finding a commentator for EU Division 3. It may be the case that we don't have one for round number 1, but I'll keep everybody posted. But until then, stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.